Hello. 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 Hello.
Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. Gentlemen, please call the roll.
Robert Tillman,
Here.
James Mooney,
Here.
William Ball,
Here.
Krista Barringer, here, Christine Bellarosa, here, Susan Gage, Raymond McClary,
Here.
Scott Polston,
Here.
Timothy Wells,
Here. The emergency exits are to the rear of the room, right and the left. I understand we have a special presentation for the Star Spangled Banner, so please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Allegiance, and then please read saying after we give a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to have a moment of silence for one of our former teachers, Joan Hoff. She's also the mother of Judy Hart, who teaches at the high school. She passed away in Thank you.
My name is James Burns. I'm the co-president of the choir, and I've been doing choir since 4th grade, and I'd like to thank the board for supporting the choir.
You got it, James.
Hello, my name is Maya Kirby. I'm the other co-president of choir. I've also been doing this since 4th grade. I've also taken every music class at our high school offers, so I just want to thank you guys for your support on those classes. I also just want to say that I did receive a $31,000 scholarship for my top school for music education, so that's what all of these programs have done for me, so I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you guys for singing tonight. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 14th and February 21st meeting. Moved by Mr. Wells, or second? Second. Second by Mr. Wells. Discussion. None in concur. I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Student rep report, Ms. Earhart.
Spring sports started last week. The Science Olympiads went to the state championship in Syracuse last Friday and did very well. The boys and girls bowling teams competed in Syracuse for state championships 2 weekends ago. The math team, represented by Michelle Lobaka, will attend state championship in Ithaca on April 22nd. The snowball dance was 2 Saturdays ago and also went well. And lastly, our valedictorian is Amy Hoyt and salutatorian is Palak Patel.
Thank you. You want to do the presentations now?
Good evening. Just a quick before Ginger and Jane give their presentations. We would like to congratulate Gene Zumbrella. He's in the back. He has been a Saugerties Central School District employee for 50 years. As of March 26th, Gene started at Saugerties Central School District on March 26, 1973 as a custodial worker. He retired February 17, 2005 after 32 years. He then became a custodial substitute after retiring. And then on July 6, 2006, Gene was appointed as a part-time food service helper in addition to being a substitute position. Thanks, Gene, for amazing 50 years.
Ms. Bill, you're up.
Using this one or not? Do we want to use this one, or I'm good? I know I have a voice, so we don't need to turn it on, unless you need it, Scott. Good evening. I just wanted to highlight some of our students and some of our work that we've been doing at the junior high. That's why we went ahead and organized your stations to walk through this evening. So a lot of my presentation was filtered around that experience for you. So I'm going to try to keep this short and succinct. But as always, I love the goals that we developed together of student achievement and culture and community and safety and security. And I always, with every meeting that I do and with every initiative, I try to keep those three headings at the forefront of what I do. So as you walked around today, you saw some grade level growth. You met Ms. Squires, who's our 8th grade English teacher, and she was one of the winners along with Justina Leverage of the Sawyer Innovation Grant. So their work has been project-based learning for what hate can do and what love can do. So a lot of that board was about that. We're actually traveling to Albany tomorrow to the New York State Museum. The whole 8th grade is going, me included. And the museum worked with us to plan an experience of what love can do and what hate can do in some of their exhibits tomorrow. So that's like the culmination of the work that they've been doing. And Sawyer Motors granted us money to do field trips and things like that as part of that Sawyer Innovation Grant from the concert. You also took a tour of the CTE, and I have some data to show you in a moment. And then I'm really proud of our BLT. Some of the members were here, and we'll be talking about that. And also, as always, my building is driven by social emotional learning. I take big takeaway from seeing Thomas Murray was a presenter, and one of the things he said, he says a lot of things, but one of the things he said was, what are you doing today that makes a child want to come back to your room tomorrow? So a lot of what we do at the junior high is to make sure that our students want to feel comfortable and safe walking in the building and that they have a great day. So without further ado, I'm going to call our student government president to the mic, Mr. Colin Consul.
Hi, I'm Colin Consul, and I'm the junior high student government president. I've come here to tell you about our accomplishments as a student government president. The first activity that we planned at the beginning of the year was an ice cream social. The ice cream social was held at 9th period after school. It was free for all junior high students as an incentive to get involved in student government. This social is actually what got me running for president and how I'm ending up here talking to you all today. The next activity we planned was called Caught Caring. The premise of Caught Caring is if somebody was doing something kind for someone, they could write it down on a little leaf, and they could write somebody's name and what they did, and then after 2 weeks, we put them in a little jar. We go on the announcements, we pick them out, and if you got picked by the generosity of Sawyer Ice Cream Co., they give us $5 ice cream gift cards to give to the students who won. Next up is Spirit Week. On Monday, we did Sawyer swag / colors. So students wore Sawyer colored clothing and Sawyer apparel. On Tuesday, we had Dress Up Like a Teacher Day, where students dress up as teachers and teachers dress up like students. On Wednesday, we had Wacky Wednesday, so stuff like wearing your clothing backwards or out of the ordinary. And on Wednesday, we actually had a movie. We showed middle school, the worst years of my life, and we gave out free popcorn for the students that showed up. On Thursday, we did matching day, so you can match up your clothing with somebody, a teacher, or a friend. And on Friday, we did pajama day, so students wore their pajamas to school. My favorite event to plan was mostly Winterfest. Winterfest was basically a dance where we had activities such as like a dancing, games, yard games, food, and all those stuff. Overall, this was a very fun event. I feel like it was a massive success in getting students out of their houses and getting to see each other again after COVID. And something we did on Valentine's Day, we sold flowers on Valentine's Day for $1 each. This was also a pretty big success, seeing people going around giving flowers to their friends and people that they like. It was really fun. And something more recent, St. Patrick's Day, we hid clovers around the junior high. And if you found a clover, you could change it in for a chocolate gold coin. It was really fun to hide the clovers over and watch people try to get and find them. You know, people competing with friends to see who could get more. It was a real blast to see people having fun. And some other things that student council did was going to a dress code meeting to address our dress code. Right now, our dress code is too vague and too subjective. This dress code is going to fit our modern school society, and I hope you all can accept it. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, and have a good day.
I spoke with Colin during the presentation. Colin is 14 years old, so in 4 more years, Colin, remember, you're going to be up here, right?
Okay, I love following that. Thanks, Colin. So I'm just going to get right to the building goals. Our BLT set 3 building goals this year, and I was also tasked with setting a goal for myself by Dr. Rohrbach, so I'll be talking about that as well. So our building goal, we wanted to focus on, as there's a literacy focus this year, we were focusing on growth. So the goal was junior high students will show a 15% increase in grade level growth in reading comprehension and math by demonstrating improvement on the iReady diagnostic platform. The junior high teachers are still getting used to the iReady platform, and the ELA pathways were open for us about a year ago to also utilize those in our I would say RIT because that's where my son goes, RTI programs, and also in our classrooms. So I took a look at that data first. I looked at student achievement as well, the grade point average. The action steps are listed. I won't read that to you. So here's the data. If it's green, that was at or above grade level. Yellow is 1 grade level below, and red is 2 or more below. But when I dug a little deeper, it's 40% of our students have moved up at least 1 grade level. So, and this is only at the halfway mark. So that's 2 out of every 5 students have improved their reading 1 grade level so far this year. And the same happened in grade 8. We had pretty standard, like 40, 41. This is actually math, not reading. Thanks for me reading my own slide. But mathematics was 2 out of every 5 have improved at least 1 grade level so far. And then the next slide is on our reading. And that's 45%. And then 8th grade, it was 1 in every 3. So we are noticing that 8th grade had a little bit less growth in the reading. So we're working on that. We actually added the literacy coaches to the junior high, and it's been a very wonderful addition. Dr. Jen has actually been working with the Humanities Project. She's actually working for interdisciplinary goals, and they're looking at obstacles of student learning and things like that to bring forth some literacy. So we were able to grab those coaches this year and use them at 7th and 8th grade, so I'm happy with that as well. Last year I stood in front of you with a very similar slide, flexible innovation, CTE in the junior high school. one of my goals, as we talk about graduation rates, there's a lot of data out there that as a student is in 7th and 8th grade, if they start to not feel a part of the school in 7th and 8th grade, those are the ones that we see not part of our percentage of graduation rate. So we're trying to build programming that builds interest in school, and also that every child of the junior high is able to earn high school credit. So what we did was we adapted the CTE programming. So CTE, the definition is there of what that is for occupational and technical knowledge. So again, the reason why I thought it was great to offer choice, and we as a BLT team talked about it, was that in 2018, they changed it to incorporate not just family and consumer science and technology, but also business and marketing and health sciences. So the way to do that is we are giving 8th graders choice, and those classes are high school credit bearing. So it's an equitable opportunity for all 8th grade students. So that's children with special needs right up on through. So every child can earn high school credit, not just the accelerated paths of math and science. And these were our first semester results. Adding them together, it's about 180 students that were in the electives, and there were only 3 children that did not earn high school credit, and they do have an opportunity for credit recovery. Some of that was due to excessive absence. So we are working with those students, but you'll see the class averages are above 85% on all of their report cards for high school credit. So it goes to show that if a student is interested, they're high performing, and we have it to show. So we're going to have every 8th grader is at least going to have 0.5, if not 1 full credit in the CTE programming. So part of our job in junior high is to make sure that we have a comfortable transition to 7th grade from 6th grade, and also when our students leave 8th grade going to 9th grade, that we make that, even though it's in the same building, there is still a lot of angst from going from the 8th grade teaming dynamic to the 9th grade experience. So these are some practices that we put in place. Our goal was to have at least 3 practices revised or developed and implemented. The support team and the BLT has done great work. I have a great team, and we were able to accomplish all of these things that are listed there for you. So the 6th graders are visited by a guidance counselor once every 6 days. They're going to the elementary schools, and they're actually getting to know the 6th graders before they come up. So they've done different programs. We actually gave them a climate survey, like how much do you know about the junior high? We gave that at the beginning of the year, and we're going to re-give it at the end of the year to see how much more comfortable they're feeling about our building. Also, we were able to establish a community night. We had community agencies here for parent-teacher conference night in the fall. 6th grade, we moved the tour that's usually in May. We moved that to February, so they got to see the building earlier, and we're working on an experience for them in May that they will be shadowing a student in the junior high for part of the time. We just have to get the transportation and the dynamics together so that we can bring them up. We're going to pair them with some peers in the 7th grade and have them experience a little bit of the school day, just so they see how the building works and what it looks like as a moving part. So we're working on that. The elective fair was held during this past parent-teacher conference night, so all the departments had a display. For our 8th grade parents, they could stop in, any parent, stop in actually. So that was great. I always think of captive audience. So the more parent nights that we have here, we're trying to add activities to those because they're already here. So we might as well show them what we've got if they're coming in the doors. And then actually at the parent-teacher conference night, we invited all parents of 6th grade students of special education to come and hear from our teachers at the junior high. There was an open house in the junior high library during our parent-teacher conference night, and I think we had 5 or 6 families show up. I'm hoping to have that grow in future years, and every teacher of the programming of the junior high spoke to those families that were there, and I actually gave them a tour when they arrived, and I showed them the different rooms that some of you toured last year, our RTI rooms and our targeted learning lab rooms, so I was able to show them what supports they have. And then our third goal, as always, the multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS. I like to call that the overhead on top of the overhead on top of the overhead. So you have transparency, and I'm not piling up the overhead machine. So transparency on top of transparency. Anyway, so what that is, like we've built PBIS, where actually that's positive behavior interventions, and we're in our 7th year of that. But during the 2nd year of that, the state released social emotional learning standards, which are the same as making sure students are comfortable and that they have positive interactions with each other. So we worked on that. And then RTI has always been there, but RTI, I think our RTI classrooms are like a home within the school. They're smaller class sizes, they're getting the help they need on the skills that they need, and they're building connections with our staff. So it's very important that we have those little breakaway classes for some of the students. We have 8 periods a day now, so we're able to build some of those smaller connections, and by taking that, and we're working a little bit to make sure there's less collisions if they had to, but we didn't have too many that weren't able to take what they wanted because they were named to RTI rooms because of the 8-period day that was added. We still have our grand rounds going. As you know, the teams meet every day, math, science, English, social studies, special ed. They meet every day and talk about students and talk about learning. So that is still going on. We were able to grab the data of semester, and any student that had 2 or more subjects that were below a 70 got a letter right before parent-teacher conferences saying, we'd love to talk to you about a plan to have your students succeed. Please make an appointment for parent conferences. So we're able to reach them that way. And we do have our first semi-formal this Friday, March 24th, for the 7th and 8th grade. So with COVID came some bonuses called Extended School Day. So these are our programs. We have academic programs every Monday through Friday. Some of these are offered. They're not every day, but there's a selection of them offered every day. And also we were able to offer enrichment in Extended School Day. You saw some of our art students that have participated in the art station. That's the art exploration, but also we have a STEAM. Connect, Share, Chat is an SEL. They go there, they talk about different topics with our social worker and guidance counselor. And then the voice workshop is offered by the music department to anyone who wants to have a hand at singing. And Fit Friday is done by Coach O, our health teacher, and Kathy Corso. So every Friday they have a plan, either get fresh air or a different exercise if the weather isn't cooperating on Friday to stay fit. So I told you I was going to tell you about my administrative goal, and for the number of years that I've been here and have come to the board meetings, sometimes the board asks what we're doing to also make sure that our teachers have the PD that they need to. So I finally was able to have my faculty meeting become a learning community. So anything that I feel like I can send in an email, I give them an update prior to the faculty meeting, and then we have an activity. This year I focused on engagement. The reason I focused on that is because a lot of times when we are trying to figure out what's wrong with a teenager, we like to say there's apathy, or they just don't care, or they're too tired to learn. And we really need to understand that there's a lot going on and a lot of distractions. And what can we do to get ourselves motivated and to engage those students. So some of those things that we did, you can go ahead. So one of the first activities we did, I had them actually think about, if we're asking a student whether they're engaged or not, what does a 7th and 8th grader, how do they define the word engagement? They think somebody's going to get down on one knee with a ring. So if we're asking them if they're engaged in the room, they're like, I'm not engaged, I'm in 7th grade. I don't really know what you mean. So we defined engagement as a faculty, and what I had them do was this prompt. I had them write down what a student did in their class that day. So, and they were sitting in like groups of 4 to 6 people for the faculty meetings. So they wrote down, you know, what was I supposed to learn today? What was I physically responsible for doing? Like, was I just sitting in a desk? Was I in group work? Did my teacher ask me a question today? Like, did I talk to my teacher today? And what will I be doing in class tomorrow? So the teachers had to think about the students in their room and how they would answer this question. And then I had them get in bigger groups and I had them go around. So I'm like, you're period 1, you're period 2, you're period 3, you're period 4. And I wanted them to see what it might look like 6 periods in a row. You know, and when I told the teachers, they were like, our group was a little monotonous for 6 periods. And some people were like, we were very hectic for 6 periods, you know. So they're taking a look through the eyes of the child, which is what I think is beneficial. So that was that activity. I stumbled upon a book that's called Redefining Engagement, and it's Amy Berry and John Hattie, who's been in education a very long time. And I presented this to them and I had them define what a disruptor is, what a student that's avoiding, what a student that might be withdrawing. And what I thought was really interesting about this engagement is that there's activity on both ends. So an active student can be driving your classroom or it can be disrupting your classroom, but harness that energy correctly. And I had them think of a roster and I had them write initials of students along the continuum there, just to kind of say, like, where are we? One of the biggest takeaways from this activity is actually talking to my staff afterwards. They actually put themselves on this continuum as teachers. So are they participating in their lesson plans? Are they making sure, or are they writing lesson plans that are driving? Or are they just, you know, are they going through the motions to make sure they're covering what they think needs to be covered? Or are they really mindful that every single day a child wants to run back into the classroom? Because let's face it, we've all been on empty in the last few years, so how can we fill our tanks? You know, so it was really interesting that they took the child continuum and actually applied it to themselves as well. Like, what can they do to improve? And finally, the junior high has not done the portrait of the graduate yet, but what I wanted to do first was for them to do a portrait of a middle schooler, because we are defining our students. We want them ready to step into 9th grade and launch into graduation mode. So our teachers were tasked to draw a portrait of a middle schooler, what's in their heart, what's on their mind, where are their feet going. I'm glad none of them drew a cell phone. But you know, we have quite the obstacle in our 375 12, 13, and 14-year-olds this year. And every year, they are heavily emotionally driven, the junior high, and we are doing our best to work through that. I'm in discussions with Officer Winchell and my BLT to do some parent workshops on social media awareness moving forward. It is a big obstacle. They're constantly wondering if the phone is buzzing. They're saying things that they normally wouldn't say, and we have to find a way to harness that energy that they're putting into their TikToks and really move us forward and have real discussions about how we can move through some of the drama, is a famous word of junior high, but be able to get them to be learners and engaged, but also be respectful of how many things they're trying to work out every day. So that's what we try to do at the junior high. And that's my last slide.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really refreshing to hear presentations on academic success. It's long overdue in the district. Ms. Seymour, you're on.
Hello. Okay, I've updated a few slides, or actually I think I've just added a few slides since Friday night. So this is the 23-24 preliminary budget, and this budget is an estimation of revenues and expenses for the 23-24 fiscal year using the information we have available right now. So to start with the property tax levy cap calculation, as of today. So this is a multi-step calculation, and we start off by using the tax levy for the current fiscal year at the top there of $42.5 million. We multiply that by the tax-based growth factor, which is given to us by the state, New York State Division of Real Property Tax Services. I want to point out that it increased to 0.52%, all the way up to 1.2%, which is about double over last year, which is good news for our area. So multiplying that out, we get to a little over $43 million. And then the next step is to add in the pilots for this year. And pilots is payment in lieu of taxes. And that amount was just under $250,000, which brings us up to $43.2 million. And then the next step is to subtract the current year's capital tax levy, which is the local share of our capital expenditures, at $885,000, which brings it back down to $42.3 million. And the next step is to multiply it by the allowable levy growth factor, which is the maximum 2% that we can use in this calculation. And currently, the actual CPI given to us by New York State Comptroller's Office is 8%. So that's a huge difference there. So when you're talking about the 2% tax cap calculation, that is where the 2% comes into play, even though it's really 8. It should be 8. Which brings us up to $43.2 million, and the next step is to subtract off the pilots that we expect to receive in the next fiscal year, which is down to $43,000. So that's a reduction in one of the pilot agreements, and then we have an additional solar pilot agreement that's going to start next year. So that's a net decrease in our pilot revenue of $206,000. So that brings us to $43,182,741 for our tax levy limit before the exclusions. So there are a few exclusions that are allowed in the calculation, but the only one that applies to us is the capital tax levy. So for next year, the total exclusions are just over $1 million. And I just want to point out that the employee retirement system is it's increasing from 11.6% of employer contribution to 13.1%. And then the TRS, which is the teacher's retirement system, is decreasing from, I didn't do that right, 10.29 to 9.76. So I broke up the capital expenditures and the state aid and reserve use. Usually I have it on one slide, but there was so many different things going on, so I broke it up into two to lay out each one separately. So it's on the expenditure side of things. The first one at the top there is an estimated bond anticipation note, principal and interest payment for the $22 million capital project, and this is based on borrowing an additional $13 million this June, and is using 5.5% interest rate. And the next one down is our energy performance contract lease principal and interest payment, and that's $234,000, and that's what it is. It's not an estimate, that's actual. And then we have our capital outlay project that we do try to do each year at $100,000. And we did discuss in facilities committee to continue with the flooring replacement at Riccardi Elementary. Then next we have our BOCES capital expenditures, about $124,000, and that is our share of Ulster BOCES capital expenses. And then we have another bond anticipation note, estimated principal and interest for BOCES capital project, which is estimated, again, using that 5.5% interest rate, and is about $488,000. And we also plan on financing both of these bands together, so then we only have one cost of issuance instead of two. So we'll save a little bit of money by doing them at the same time. So the total of those expenses is $2.7 million. The next page, we have the state aid and reserve use. So the state aid corresponds with each of the items on the front page there. So some of the first one, state building aid for our cash projects. This is for previous capital projects that we've done, including the Riccardi roof, the gutters at Cahill, boilers at Cahill, Mount Merion, and Morse sewer and septic projects. So that amount of state aid is $161,585. And the state building aid for the energy performance contract is $255,702. And then the state building aid on our $22 million project. We're working with our financial advisors to request an early aid start so that we can hopefully get the $974,000. And the next one, the BOCES aid on the BOCES capital expenses is about $22,000. And then the state BOCES aid on the Ulster BOCES capital project is about $185,187. And that BOCES aid for their capital project is based on the cash payment that we made last July and on the finance payments that we'll be making in the 23-24 year. And then next, we're going to be doing a transfer from our debt service reserve of just under $125,000. That brings this side of the equation up to $1,724,254. So the difference between the two of those is the local share of the capital expenses and also the total exclusion of $1,02,427. So we add that to the total tax levy limit before exclusions to bring us up to a maximum allowable levy limit of $44,185,168, which is an increase over the current year tax levy of $1,681,321 or 3.96%. So major factors in the increase is the tax base growth factor. That doubled over the previous year. The decrease in the pilot payments of over $200,000, the maximum levy growth factor of the 2%, and then the addition of the local share of the BOCES capital project. So, state aid projections. I've updated this a little from the last presentation. So we have the governor's proposal that I've adjusted to $24,759,439, which is an increase of over $2.5 million from previous year, or 11.7%. So we had a big increase in the foundation aid to the full phase-in amount of over $900,000. So. Next page, I've broken down, so I have the current year, the revenue budget, and then the governor's proposal, which I explained at the last meeting. And then I have the last column to the right is where I've adjusted the numbers a bit. So the adjustment in the foundation aid amount is after the governor's run, they do another run of the foundation aid calculation. So it came back and the CPI in the calculation changed from 7.9% to 8%, which gave us an additional $40,000. So that's included there. And for the BOCES aid, the original governor's run had included, so the second and third line there, it had it included as a total. I just broke it out so you can see the difference in the two categories, because one is just regular BOCES aid and the other is the capital aid for the, specifically for the capital project. But in the governor's run for for whatever reason, I'm not sure, they made the assumption that all of the districts were going to use cash payments to pay for their July 23 payment and their July 24 payment, and that doesn't apply to us. So, and they also made another assumption that was incorrect to come up with that 707,000. So adjusting those to what is actually going to happen brings that aid down to 185,187, which is what was included in the tax cap calculation. And then we went over a few of these last times. The next few stayed the same until we get down to transportation aid. I looked at what we were actually spending and what's projected to be spent for the rest of the year, and I adjusted that revenue down to 2.3 million. And then the high cost and the private excess cost there, the governor's projection uses some estimation from information from a few years ago, which is not correct. I adjusted it a little bit closer to what it will be, and I should be in the next few weeks getting a little bit more information so I can make a better estimate on those numbers, but it should be fairly close to what's there, the 450,000 and the 675,000. And next for building aid. So again, the governor's projection doesn't always use the latest information. It doesn't include anything for the energy performance contract, which should be closed out this summer. And then I've also included the adjusted, the estimates for the early aid payments that we're working with our financial advisors on. So I've included both of those amounts in that to bring that total building aid up to just under $1.4 million. And then the high impact tutoring, which we spoke about last time, is still in there for now, which again is just taken out of our foundation aid and set aside in this particular category. Next, this slide is new. Just a couple updates from the Senate and the Assembly budgets. Just that they've accepted the fully funded foundation aid, which is awesome, that 900,000. They've rejected that high impact tutoring set aside, which we appreciate. We would just like the money all included in foundation aid rather than as a set aside. We're already doing high impact tutoring and we pay for it out of general funds and title funds. So hopefully that'll go right back up into that top category. They rejected the duplicative school budget, building level budget reporting, which I appreciate. That's the New York State Division of Budget Transparency report that was started by our former Governor Cuomo, which is basically, it's almost the same information that we have to report to the federal government, but the report for the federal government is based on actual expenditures, whereas this report is just based on budget. And it's not exactly the same, so it takes a little bit longer. There's a little bit different nuances to each. Next one, which would be great for us, is they have included funding for universal school meals, which would be amazing. And next, this would affect us a little bit as far as our BOCES aid. They're considering raising the BOCES aidable salary cap and increasing special services aid for their non-component districts, which that second one to me says, so we're a component district of Ulster BOCES, but if they provide services for non-component districts, it could potentially reduce the cost of if we're buying the same service. So that would be helpful to us. You know, it could bring our costs down. So that would be great. And then last, they're going to include funding for a study on the foundation aid formula. I think you may be aware that there are several districts that are fully funded and they continue to get a 3% minimum amount. And right now we're fully funded. So what happens after that? So it would be great if they looked into it. So our revenue projections altogether here, the state aid is 24.7 million. Then we have our property tax levy calculation at 44.1 million. And then our other sources are estimated at 1.8 million to bring us up to total revenue of $70,773,085. So in that other sources category, we have interest income, which is increased. We also have our rental income for our leases at Mount Merion. The pilot payment is included in that, so that was a decrease in that category. And then we also include here that transfer from debt service, which was in the tax cap calculation. It's included in our revenue side of the budget as other sources. It also includes non-resident tuition, health and welfare services for our non-public schools, our BOCES refund, and Medicaid reimbursements. So just a little slide about the American Rescue Plan, which is one of the grants that actually goes through 23-24. And here's a list of the positions that we're funding with that grant. And it's going to be about 1.5 million, a little over that for the 23-24 fiscal year. So our expenditure projections, total projected right now is $71,192,559, and about 4.7 million over the prior year. So it's over 7% of an increase, which does sound like a lot, and I have explanation for that. So there's a lot going on. So we have the increase due to the debt service related to our capital project and the Ulster BOCES capital project, which is offset with building aid. So it makes both sides of the budget go up. And then we have several pieces of equipment and vehicles as included in the budget. So those are one-time and not recurring necessarily. We have certain contractual obligations. We have special education requirements, health insurance increase, and also an increase in transportation. So the budget broken down into some various categories here. So I have it compared to the 23-24 or 22-23 adopted budget. So I have our projected in these categories. So the first one, the central admin, includes Board of Education, Superintendent, Business Office, Personnel, Public Information, Legal, and a few other things. And the increase there is really contractual increases, liability insurance is there. There's an increase in that. An account clerk position going from part-time to full-time, and also included is a little bit more money for our new superintendent. If he or she would like some training, I've included more money in that category. Then we have instruction. So BOCES, admin, and capital. That's the regular, our share of the BOCES administrative and capital portion. So part of that capital money there is included in the tax levy calculation. Next we have instruction. So we included in that category is all of the principal's offices, all faculty and paraprofessionals, materials and supplies, as well as professional development. We have contractual salary increases and substitute rate increases, special education placements, and fulfilling IEP requirements. And facilities, that's building operations and maintenance. We have the heating, electricity, custodial supplies, maintenance materials, and contractual items, including inspections of different systems. And then in technology, we have our hardware replacement schedule, which continues our one-to-one initiative, helped out by federal funding, of course, for grades kindergarten, 4th, and 8th. We're replacing smart boards with interactive displays, and our phone system needs an upgrade as well. In transportation, the increase is the CPI. I used 5% for 2 of our contractors within this category. And then we received our new proposal for our main home to school summer contract, as well as field trips and athletic trips. And with all of these together, the net increase is 9%, a little over 9%. So in our sports and co-curricular, we have contractual increases and additions of stipends for elementary programs, and a proposed change in athletic director and clerical from part-time to full-time within that department. There's a net increase for the benefits. I spoke before about the decrease in the teacher's retirement system, but we do have an increase in the employee's retirement system contribution, as well as an increase overall for our main health insurance provider, which is the DHIC, the Dutchess Educational Health Insurance Consortium. The rates are increasing for our active employees about 7.25%, and they're decreasing for our over 65 retirees about 1.75%. But that leads to the overall increase for the district in that category. Next is the debt service that I spoke about. We have our EPC lease principal and interest payments, and the new bond anticipation note principal and interest payments for the Ulster BOCES capital project, as well as an additional bond anticipation note for that $13 million for the capital project. And then in the transfer to other funds category, there's 3 different things going on within that category. The $100,000 capital outlay project to continue that flooring at Riccardi. We have a transfer to the school lunch fund of $175,000, and a transfer to our special aid fund, which covers the local share of our extended school year program. That's $150,000. So, but if New York State does take over the payment for the meals for all students, we may be able to reduce the transfer to the school lunch fund. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Next, I have a few more details on some of those larger increase categories. So for instructional, we have equipment and instrument replacement. So again, contractual salary increases. We're currently negotiating with our Teachers Association and special education. I know there was the increase was a concern of the board as well as mine, as we don't seem to have enough money budgeted there. So we did add what we needed and estimated a little bit more leeway on that. Let's see, transportation, no, facilities. We have enhanced facility evaluation, which is required by New York State Education Department. We have some personnel changes within that department, and then vehicle and equipment replacement. For our transportation, I spoke about the CPI increases, which the CPI lately, again, is a big number compared to what it was in the past for 2 of our providers, and then a new contract with First Student, and an additional van for in-house transportation for our students. Then sports and co-curricular, again, full-time staff in the athletic department, increase in chaperones. We have additional clubs, which means additional stipends for advisors, registration fees, travel, materials and supplies, and they're doing good, right? Science Olympiad, so that was fun. So next we have benefits. Again, the health insurance increases, the ERS contribution increases. We also have an increase of estimated over 6.5% on workers' compensation, and our debt service that I referred to previously. So current year additions is our, which will hopefully be approved tonight, is our school advocacy specialist to work with our 85 Spanish-speaking households that have 146 of our students. This position will interpret and communicate and also translate school communications with our families. We have a few additional lead teachers in science, which are aligning curriculum to new standards. And then lead teachers in social studies have been working on the seal of civic readiness, which is a requirement of the State Education Department. And next year, they will begin to analyze the K-8 social studies curriculum and do some curriculum mapping. We have additional lead math and English teachers are from the secondary level, so there's representation from the entire district on those committees. Also, special education aides and assistants are fulfilling IEP requirements, as well as bus monitors fulfilling IEP requirements, as well as 504 plan requirements. And if you know anybody who wants to do that, we need substitutes. Okay. Morning or afternoon? We'll take anything. Okay. Some modifications to particular personnel based on district initiatives or changing needs. So the first one, retirement of the current half-time special education teacher and half-time athletic director, moving to full-time assistant principal athletic director position. Replace door monitors with security guard contract. This was discussed at the district safety committee and also recommended in our security evaluation by Doyle Consulting in conjunction with Day Automation. Next, our IT staff has been about 3.5 FTE for several years, and with the addition of all the one-to-one devices and the advanced classroom technology, field service technicians are needed. Our library teaching assistants are currently helping with this work, but it's a bit out of their scope of duties, and it fits best with the job specs of the field service technicians. Then we have pending retirement of our head custodian in June 2024 and the anticipated retirement of our maintenance foreman. We would like to replace both of these positions with a director of facilities. The civil service exam was given recently and the list should be out soon. We'd like to plan on January hiring for some time to overlap and then have a smooth transition. And then the last, we were unable to fill one technology teacher position and would like to post for a science teacher position instead to improve our MST offerings. So we can't get the T, so we'll take the S, hopefully. And then a couple of proposed additions is the account clerk in the business office to move. She's currently part-time. We'd like that to be full-time, and she currently works overtime almost every week. The full-time position would allow her to keep up with her current job duties with attendance, and she would take over Affordable Care Act reporting process and start to learn the retiree health insurance billing process for our 350 retirees. Then we have the typist within the athletics department, full-time for part-time to work with a full-time assistant principal AD. Then lead teachers as discussed. These additions would be less than $100,000 altogether. A few more things. So the enhanced facility evaluation, that's our fancy way of saying building condition survey, which is required by SED. This is partially reimbursed through state building aid in 24-25. So replacement of our AEDs, we currently have 10. They're still working, but they're getting older, and it was a suggestion from our health and safety person replacing for newer models. Next, replacement of computers and 3D printers for our technology classes. A Suburban to replace our mail van. Currently our mail van is 15 years old, and the Suburban would offer more flexibility to transport students, staff, and or equipment as well. We do have a need for transporting the football equipment. It's better if the kids go on the buses and then we transport the equipment separately, and because we can't always get the number of buses we need, so it would be great to put it in something that's not the food van. Additional a van to transport students. So we're looking to add like a 12 or a 15 passenger van. Right now we have one small bus. We have 2 drivers and 1 substitute driver, but we only have 1 vehicle. So it doesn't really help us out, when somebody's out on a run and then we have something, an emergency pop up where somebody missed the bus and they need to get home. It would be great to have something else. for those situations. Next, our audiometer and vision equipment is outdated and needs replacing. And then we have a need for an oboe. So our proposed 23-24 BOCES budget, I believe we have a meeting this week to go over some more of the numbers. So right now it's just what we've estimated so far. So in our district, like many other districts, are facing an increase in student need, especially after this pandemic. So we're increasing student placements within the alternative programs, special education programs, as well as the temporary therapeutic program at BOCES. So the increase is about 900,000 up to 6.1 million. So the difference between our estimated revenues and expenses comes out to a deficit of $419,474. And last year's budget had a deficit of about $138,000, which we were able to appropriate that amount through fund balance and reserves. So we don't typically like to appropriate fund balance unless it's for one-time expenses. So the total of the capital assets that are included in this budget is about $540,000. So a deficit less than that is reasonable. So we have a few categories that we could appropriate from the unemployment reserve. I budgeted $25,000 in that category, and I believe there's about $90,000 in that reserve. And then our retirement reserve, since the ERS contribution is increasing, it would make sense to appropriate some from that reserve as well. So, as closing the budget gap. Usually we like to wait for the legislative budget that's due out April 1st to see what that brings. And again, like I said before, if it brings the universal free meals, then we can reduce that interfund transfer to school lunch. I'm also working on fund balance projection and reserve amounts, and I will have that for our next meeting. And then again, we're continuously working and getting more updated prices on some things. So there's a few factors that may change in this, and it could be reduced a little bit more. That is it. Somebody have questions? Or Kirk, did you have anything to add?
No, I just want to thank Jane for all the work on this. It's tricky when you start looking at, with the capital projects, like Jane said, both sides of the budget go up, right? So we're spending more, but we're also getting it as a revenue in the future. So when you first see those numbers, you're always like, oh my goodness, and then you realize that, okay, we're going to get more aid back because we're spending more. And then obviously everybody knew that the transportation RFP was going to go out, we knew transportation was going to go up. CPI is 8, state gave us 2%, which is still fine, and they did. I'm happy they finally funded everything completely. There's just stuff that we know is going to increase, but I'm glad the fact that, we're going to be able to close that 400,000, and we're continuing to add programming, right? We're not reducing anything, we're just continuing adding opportunities for our students.
Scott?
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Just 2 quick questions here. On the state aid breakdown under the building, the extra credit that you mentioned, the $1 million credit that was not included in the governor's proposal. I just wonder, is that a one-time credit or is that an ongoing credit?
Okay. I talked about, so.
I said energy credits and stuff that weren't included.
Okay, so sometimes when they pull the information, it doesn't include everything that's currently happening. So we have our capital projects going on in our energy performance, and they don't know when we're going to finish it, so they don't include the expectation that they're going to have to pay us.
Is it an ongoing credit though?
Yes.
It is ongoing.
Yes.
Right.
So
Nice.
I said they didn't include the energy performance contract amount. So right here, my estimate for next year is $255,000, but that's a full year plus a half year. If we close out by June, we'll get an extra half year, which is deferred into next year. So the ongoing isn't as high as 255, but it's less than that, but it'll be ongoing for 15 more years.
Okay. And then just real quick, the vehicle purchases that are suggested, are those counted as cash or are they going to be financed?
I put them in there as cash.
Okay. So there would be a little room maybe to lower the budget gap if we financed?
We could, but together it's less than $100,000. So I don't know if it would be worth it, and interest rates are kind of high right now.
Okay.
So, although, great idea.
Okay, thank you.
Jane, the governor has threatened to delay the budget because she's negotiating with the legislature about the bail reform. If it gets pushed back a week or 2 weeks, how much does it affect you?
Not too much. Like, I'll change the things on the expense side that I can change, and then so as soon as we have those numbers, I can plug it back in as long as they don't change too much, and only in the good direction, right? So they're either going to give us more or it would stay the same. So like I said, if they do the universal free meals, I would just subtract off an amount from that interfund transfer, and then it won't be too bad. But we need to approve something on April 19th, something, 18th, 19th, something like that. But we can use our best estimate at the time if we don't have anything available.
Thank you.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
I'll go with the really easy one.
Thanks.
The director of facilities.
Yes.
The test that happened.
Yes.
Any of our people notified ahead of time that that was happening, and that any of our staff notified ahead of time that that was happening, and that they should
They all
take
were.
the test? Easy, right?
Yeah.
That was the easy
Yep.
one. Okay. Now we get into the math.
I'm not sure who took it, but I hope a bunch of them.
No, that's great. Just as long as they knew it was
Yes.
available
Yeah.
and that they were encouraged to, that's perfect. Math, not my forte. I'm a social worker. I don't do math. So, on the second slide, where we talk about the allowable levy growth factor of 2%, thank you for giving us 2%, but then the calculation is 1.02.
Yes.
Can you teach me math? Why?
2%.
So
I'm not a teacher.
1.02
I
is,
never was.
1.02 is 2%?
Yes, 2% on top of that 42.
Yeah,
So we're
add one.
adding
You get
to it.
100% plus the extra 2%.
You have to add one when you multiply the index.
Okay, someone's gonna have to write this down sometime. It'll show me later. Okay, I'm not math. I go, wait, that's not 2. Sorry. Okay, so then, on I think the 6th slide, when we talk about the proposed tax levy and the increase of being 3.96.
Yes.
My understanding, and this is why I'm over here, and I'm like, I just want to extend an appreciation to you and the entire administration and staff of the detail and the complexity of everything you've presented here, and anything I say now has nothing to do with all that you presented. This is an amazing budget. What I'm hearing at the state is that, yes, they want to do a full funding of the foundation aid, but they want to see us pull back on local taxes as a give back. What I've seen is that we've been, this is what we're allowed. Like, it's always, this is what we're allowed, so this is what we ask for. When it goes out, we ask for our taxes. But my understanding is there's a discussion happening at a state level saying,
They're the ones who.
well, they're the ones who tell us this is what you're allowed to
to
go, well, what they'll say is this is what you can go
capping
for.
us in a way.
Yes.
So why would they now say we should do something different from that?
I totally understand exactly what you're saying. I just know there's a political push happening right now that, like, to lower individuals' taxes, right?
Okay.
That's and so the state, I'm hearing them say, we'll fully fund on the state aid side, so that you can start pulling down money on the taxpayer side. You're not hearing that.
I'm hearing it, but.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would hear you,
so-
but
yeah.
you're right. So,
Okay.
but there are districts that have been fully funded.
Yeah.
there's a lot like us who have been waiting
Right.
a long
Right.
time
We've
to
been
be fully.
missing out
So
on
now,
millions for how many
years have we been shorted? So now they finally caught up in 2023, and they're like, well, you finally caught up, now reduce your local.
Right.
Well, wait, we're not the districts that have been getting the full share
Right.
for X amount of years that had time to build up reserves and have done multiple capital projects.
Okay.
We're just the opposite. We're doing our first capital project we've had in over a decade. We finally are getting fully funded.
Right.
So to float that, when you got 770 different districts, all at different places where they are in their foundation aid and their ratios.
Yeah. So is it,
So can we say it doesn't apply to everyone?
right, can we also say that it's something that if we become fully funded for a period of years, like these other districts were, then 5 years down the line, we could start seeing some changes in our local tax levy if we're starting to see that continuation coming from the state.
It'd be great to say that, but once again, they don't take into consideration everything on their side, like the CPI, the transportation. I mean, I can't meet with a public official without me saying, how are they going to start helping us with transportation? Right?
Yeah.
The cost of
I
transportation,
can't
fuel,
even-
drivers,
Yeah.
is going up faster than they're aiding us back. So that's just one small piece of what, we just got our one contract. Now, one of our contracts has CPI built in, one doesn't. So it'd be great to say that, but then they have to start being more stagnant on the things they're returning revenues back to us on money that we spend. Does that make sense?
That absolutely does, and I concur exactly what you're saying, because again, your detailed report definitely demonstrated the things we were not getting back in terms of our expenditures, that to the level that, I mean, I'm looking at these numbers going, that's all we got.
Yeah.
So I totally hear what you're saying and definitely agree. I just wanted to, I hate to bring it to this kind of public forum to say this, it's just, I just know we're gonna hear it on a state level again.
So within the calculation, the transfer from the debt service reserve, that's actually money that is set aside, and we're using that to reduce the exclusion. So we are doing it, although it's very tiny because I don't have a lot in there. It's 124,000. So that's to keep it under the 4%, because if I took that out, the cap would be higher than that. Right? So I'm strictly using their calculation that they came up with and gave to us. Straight up. And there are a few districts in our, one in particular, I won't mention any names, but they're overfunded for several years with the foundation aid by like $2 or $3 million a year. So, but they're doing a capital project. They know they needed work, and they're getting that work done. So, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just different circumstances.
And I definitely, I wanted
for
to.
everybody.
No, but I'm glad you
Stress,
brought it up.
yeah.
I think people, how do I say this? When things are floated and people hear it, it sounds like, well, that does make sense, right? If the state's giving us more aid, the local piece, but the state aid hasn't caught up to what we've been trying to do here for 7 or 8 years when we were cutting teachers, not doing capital projects, because we were staying afloat. And there was other districts that were fully funded that were staying afloat and putting money in reserves and getting capital project work done.
And we are now just seeing the
Yes.
economic, or the academic and the programming changes that we have desired for, 4 years now we've been working on this? So we're just now seeing the impact of those changes. So I definitely, I love what you've done. This is
So, well, I just want to point out a couple other things within the tax cap calculation. So the first there, the tax base growth factor. So that is something that the state gives us to set, and the other part of it is your assessed value is increasing, your community is growing. So if your assessed value is going up and your tax levy is, pretty consistent, then the tax rate should go down and people will pay less. And what else? Oh, in the pilots, the pilot amount. So that pilot is, the one of them, it's coming off the pilot books, right? And it's going on to the tax rolls. So again, that's going to increase the assessed value for the whole district, and therefore hopefully reducing the tax rate. So those two things within this calculation, there's a reason why they're in there, right? So those two things allow us to have a higher tax levy, but they know that the assessed value is getting larger. So it should work out pretty well, right? No huge increase, no huge decrease. It should stay pretty consistent. And again, that's their formula that they gave us.
Sorry. Questions as well.
I'm sorry, out of here.
I know. I don't know if this is on. So just the ARP funding slide, you had indicated that that's about $1.5 million for the 23-24 school year. That we're getting funded for all of these things, you know, literacy coaches, math coaches, everything, new social workers. What happens, don't want to go too far ahead, but you know, that's a big chunk of change for a lot of things that have been good for the district. You know, do we know what we anticipate doing for the 23-24 budget for that, for the following year, sorry?
I know several of these positions can also be funded out of some of our other grants, so we're really going to work to maximize our other grants to cover these, what we can of these positions. And I need Kurt to help me out.
Yes, well, some of the funds still go to 2025. So, you know, so an important part, I'm glad you asked that question. An important part of this year is to evaluate all of these programming, and we do know there will be a reduction, because part of what the federal government said is take this money, catch up the learning loss, knowing it's going to go away. So it's our job as a district over the next 12 months to say which of these are directly impacting students, which of these were due to COVID, and if they have to be reduced, which of these are best to reduce to limit that. So that's, you know, that's part of, you know, that's why I'm so impressed with all our 5 building leaders. I think they did an amazing job with their presentations this year of looking at data, all the data, and presenting ugly data, right? Anybody can present the good stuff, but this is what we need to work on. So you're right, over the next year, we have to look at this 1.4 million and what of it has to be reduced, what can go through other grants, what can go through Title I, and then build back on that again. But that's a good point, and that's what we have to do going forward, is to constantly evaluate everything we do.
Sorry, and then another question is with the change, I think it's in the athletic office. Is there any discussion or, you know, thoughts on having like a full-time director of physical, health, physical education, athletic director, instead of having a person who's part-time athletic director, part-time assistant principal, and having someone that's fully dedicated to the health program, the physical education program across the district, not just, you know, the high school sports program, but the district as a whole, and, you know, a way to work that.
I'd love to, and I think that's one of those things where, you know, we look at this came out of a couple of the governance meetings. Parents had said we'd like to go back to an athletic director. This is something we thought we could afford this year, but once again, I think this is something we need to look at, because I agree. There's more to an athletic director than scheduling games, right? There's your K-12 curriculum, there's your health. I think our wellness committee has done an amazing job of looking at things. You know, so I think that's another thing we look at and go, we also know we need to support. I mean, last year when we had Trish using our federal money, was kind of like a dean. She was an amazing help with students, especially with the social media and the bullying, some of the lower level stuff. But, you know, I think once again, I think that's something we need to look at if we're finding out that what do we reap from a full-time athletic director that's also really looking at our K-12 curriculum.
And then just, I know budgets and everything are always a point in time estimate, and I think this has been really helpful. But when I look back in December when we did the long-term, long-range financial plan, we were looking at potentially a $600,000 surplus for this next fiscal year. Now we're looking at a $400,000 deficit. What do you know? What kind of impacted sort of that?
The health insurance went up more than I thought it would.
Okay.
More than I was expecting. We did put in more equipment than I had originally anticipated as well.
And we also looked more at placements.
Yeah, the special ed placements.
We thought that was good.
Yeah,
We're seeing a need for what we can't always handle in-house.
yeah, and there's a few more residentials, which are pricey. So all of those things.
Jane?
We're done. No.
Hi. A couple of my questions were already asked, so that's good. We've got that going for us, right? Can you just for my sake explain, or for maybe other people's sake as well, explain what you're talking about, the early aid payments, what we're seeking to do and how that would work?
Okay, I'm not extremely familiar with it because I've never had to do it before. But our financial advisors are suggesting this is a mechanism so that we can get our aid earlier, because our project got pushed off an entire year because of those high prices that we obtained last year. We had to reject all of them. So they are pretty confident that we can request to receive the money early, because usually you can't get the money. It's either 18 months or when you complete a project. But how it works is each building has its own project number. And even though like the roofers might be finished, that's not a complete project that, you know what I mean? It's not a whole project that's done, because they're just one piece of that project number. So nothing's really gonna be done. None of those project numbers will be done until the following year. So we just fit into this where we can probably get that money earlier. And we need to get it, because we're gonna be upfronting a lot. And it wasn't supposed to happen this way, right? We were supposed to do it last year, and it was supposed to work differently. And it just didn't work out for us, but this is a mechanism that's allowable by New York State, so we can get some money up front. So we can offset that and keep that local share consistent. Or I would be coming to you saying, hey, our tax cap is gonna be like 7%. But they're pretty confident that we can get that. We have a really good excuse.
Right. Well, construction delays beyond our control.
Right.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you. And also, I just want a clarification on the BOCES capital aid.
That's
I
true.
think I missed a portion of that. I know it's estimated at 700-something thousand, and you had included.
Yeah.
So
the BOCES capital project is it's a little bit complicated because it doesn't follow the same rules as like our own capital project. And how it works is we get the aid, BOCES aid, not building aid, BOCES aid, which is a different percentage, but we get it after BOCES reports our payments, cash payments or financed amounts. It's really weird. So last summer we made a cash payment of like $382,000. And then this summer we're going to be making, we're going to be paying them like $1 million, but we're going to be financing a portion. So what BOCES is going to do is they're going to report our $382,000 cash payment and what we're financing this year, and then sending that to the state, and then we'll get our money this year, that $187,000. But what, in the governor's proposals, they assumed that we were going to pay the $382 in cash and the $1 million in cash, and then they took the two of those numbers and multiplied it by our BOCES aid and came up with that $700,000, which isn't accurate, because even though we're paying BOCES, let's say 1.3 altogether, their project isn't 100% aidable, because most of the work in their project is going to be done in non-instructional space. It doesn't qualify for aid. So they're estimating about 40% of the project is aidable. So really there should be taking that 1.3 if we were to pay them both in cash, right? And then multiplying it by 40%, which is the aidable amount, and then by our aid ratio. But the governor in that proposal did not do that. They just took the whole 1.3 and multiplied it by our aid ratio and came up with 700,000. But we're not paying it the same way, and it's not being aided at the amount that was assumed in that run.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sorry, it's really weird.
No, it makes, I understand completely, now I do. Thank you.
Oh, come on.
Please. All 2%.
Presentation next time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Public recognition, anybody wishing to address the board, pertaining to this agenda, please approach the podium, state your name and residence, and feel free to speak.
I'm all excited. You're excited. Is this on? Maybe.
Nothing is off.
Is it off? I'm just loud. Loud? My name is Katie Emerson Haas. I live at 64 Washington Avenue, just down the road. I had a bunch of notes, and now all those numbers just... Now I have like 3 sentences, so... I just wanted to publicly come and thank Kirk for your service here. I was disappointed and, it's like, when I heard you were leaving. But I have faith in this district and in the work that you have done to bring this district to a much better place than it was 4 years ago. None of the conversations that we were having today by anybody, Ginger, thank you so much for starting with love and ending with engagement. And the reason I know, Kirk, you've been effective in what we had hoped for you when we hired you is that that is reflected in the team that consistently comes up here and talks about the work that's happening and talks about ugly data. Like I had notes like that, like you're willing to talk about that. And so I just wanted to thank you publicly because I think it's been tremendous. I went, in preparation for this, I went and looked at the amazing work we did to hire Kirk, and regardless of whether you choose to hire from within or to do an external search, I think we're in a very different place about the reasons why we did an pretty exclusive, extensive external search last time was because we really needed to bring the district into a very different place. And I think in many ways it is, and I'm so glad to see the educators that were here before Kirk came now being able to sort of rise and be the strong educational leaders that I feel like they probably always wanted to be. Too many words. So I just want to thank you for your service, and Kingston is going to be lucky to have you, and clearly they need you. And welcome, Dan, for the moment at least. I want to really give the board a vote of confidence, at least my confidence, that this board can make the transition to new leadership successful. And I'm going to send everybody on the board an email. It's going to have a bunch of attachments in it. So for those of you who were not here 4 years ago, when we hired Kirk, it will have all of the competency-based questions that we asked. There were multiple rounds of questions. And again, whether or not you do an internal search or an external search, I really encourage you to adopt a competency-based framework where you come up with scenarios and you ask them questions and then you say, and then what would you say? And then what would you say? And then what did you do? Because we developed an instructional leadership of the desired characteristics. I'm not going to read them all, but the 3 that top the list are establishes and supports a professional climate of trust and respect in schools through honest, consistent, and transparent interactions with the board, faculty, administrators, and support staff. I think we got that. Is a people person who is able to articulate a vision for the schools, be inspirational and passionate about that vision, and is committed to working collaboratively with the board and all stakeholders to realize that vision, and is an experienced educator who, having been a teacher and building leader, puts the needs of students first, and that has been consistent from the very beginning. And so I just want to say that, and I want to thank Jane again for this whole budget process.
I learn a little bit every time. And, but it is so necessary, and I'm so grateful for you not rolling your eyes at board members when they ask you questions, and not dismissing questions, but engaging with them. Again, I see engagement throughout the district at different levels, and that is worth its weight in gold. So, thank you.
This is new for me. I don't usually do this. My name is Scott Wickham. I live at 36 Rivka Road here in Saugerties. I too am here to speak about our superintendent. I'm just finishing up my 30th year here in Saugerties, and I can't begin to tell you how joyful the last 4 years have been. So I thought I would do this. Instead of going on and on, I thought I would give you what I give my students 8 times a year. I thought I would give you some comments on your report card. The first one I have is leads by example. I can't imagine, and I was in this building when we shut down during COVID, and I can't imagine a more stressful period of time for me as a teacher than it was during that time. And Kurt, your leadership was incredible. You got me through it. And after 27 years at the time, I don't think I would be here today if it weren't for Mr. Reinhardt. Pleasure to have a class, in parentheses, I would say school district. It has been such a pleasure to have you as a leader of our school. Being an inside guy, you know, I know it hasn't been difficult, or it hasn't been easy for you, but your facts are straight. You've done the right thing, and it's been a pleasure working for you. I need my old man glasses, I'm sorry. Works hard so others can succeed. I can't think of a better comment that I could put on his report card than that. He works hard so I, as a school teacher, can be in that classroom and be successful. He's put the students first. He said that through and through his last 4 years here. Exceeds expectations. Now, I knew when you came in, you were a wrestling coach, and my expectations for you were pretty high, just because of the nature of that sport. But every time, you exceeded every single one of them. You make teaching fun. Kingston is going to get a leader back that makes teaching fun. Mr. Ersig, I hope that we have that same camaraderie that Mr. Reinhardt and I have had over the last 4 years. It's been a sincere pleasure having you as the leader of this district. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? No? We will move to superintendent's report.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. I want to congratulate the musical. I was unable to make it this year, some personal things. I heard nothing but amazing things about it. I just love stuff like that, the students, the staff. It was great seeing the choir students tonight. Those things are wonderful. And somebody already mentioned the Science Olympiad. I'm so glad we started that last year. Chelsea's just done an amazing job. Just to make it to the States in your second year is amazing. The comment that Chelsea sent to us Saturday afternoon or Sunday was, you know, the kids got an eye-opening. And I had talked to some of the kids before they got on the bus Friday. You know, you're going against schools that's what they do. I mean, I don't think people realize that there's Brooklyn School of Science and there's private schools, and the fact that we're competing against them is amazing. And we did have 2 students take first in trajectory, Zach Feinberg and Ian Victory. So once again, just 2 things that are just really amazing.
We'll move it to board member remarks. Board members wishing to speak. Mr. Wells?
I'll go. So I guess first I'll start with Mr. Reinhardt. Obviously, I came on after some of these board members had hired you. I had a personal relationship with Mr. Reinhardt. I've known him for 30 plus years at this point. He was actually my brother's wrestling coach and my football coach back when he had hair, so long time ago. But obviously, being able to work with you in a different capacity and not just being a student has been interesting for me. It's still hard for me not to call him coach. I find myself wanting to call him that all the time. But obviously, it's disappointing for me, kind of reiterating what Dr. Haas said, that you are leaving. Obviously, it's a big loss in my eyes for the district. What I've seen over the course of the time that I've been on the board is an incredible leader. And not just, the text at 3:30 in the morning or 11:30 at night, the emails at all times, just basically showing true leadership throughout the district, and I'm watching it kind of ripple effect through the district, which is pretty amazing. They say looking at leaders is the people and the team that they put in place as well. You can't just judge them by their leadership, it's who they put in place. And I think over the course of time that you've been here, the 4 years, I think you've assembled a pretty amazing team. And I think what we've seen in some of these presentations from building leadership, Jane, Dr. Rohrbach, throughout the period that she's been here, have been everything a board could hope for, I guess. It's been pretty amazing to see the transformation that I've seen just in the course of time that I've been here, and I kind of came in after the fact a little bit. So I thank you for your time here. I look forward to the team that you assembled, continuing the path that we've already kind of set forward on. And I'm a little sad that you're not going to be here to see it through, because I'm sure you are as well a little bit. But thank you very much for that. On to other things, a little less heart-wrenching, I guess, so to speak. The Science Olympiad, you guys spoke on that. I think that's pretty amazing. It's kind of showing some of the things that, as a board, when we had to make some hard decisions, are starting to come to fruition. Somebody mentioned earlier that, it's a process with the board. You don't see overnight successes happening. You don't see immediate results. It's a thing that I've learned the hard way on being with this board is it takes time. Things take a long time sometimes. There's things that were talked about the first day that I was on the board that are still in the process. So it's just really cool for me to see that kind of stuff that where maybe I had to make a really difficult decision or vote that wasn't really well thought on in some public eyes, and to see that kind of coming to fruition is pretty cool for me. Beyond like the Science Olympiad, we talked about the math team, the choir. And I know, Mr. Reinhardt, he was a coach, but he also, that type of stuff it was a big thing for him, the arts, choir, things like that. The young woman earlier tonight said that she got a $31,000 scholarship to the school that she chose first. Like, that's pretty amazing. That's pretty awesome to see something like that. Congratulations to salutatorian and valedictorian. Gene, I don't know if he's still here or not, but 50 years. That was before I was born, so holy cow, that's pretty impressive. But that's pretty cool to see that stuff, and to see the presentations that Mrs. Vale kind of had these kids put on for us today. The student council showing the things that they've done in the school to kind of bring everybody together in a sense and kind of create that what we've kind of missed over the past 3 years. It's pretty awesome to kind of see some of the things that these kids are coming up with themselves, and they're having teacher mentorship, and these kids are just kind of making things happen for everybody. My son, he's in junior high, so obviously some of the stuff that Mrs. Vale spoke on was very near and dear to my heart. My son was very upset that he couldn't make what was the Winterfest dance because he had a lacrosse game that night. He was very upset with me. He actually begged to not go to his lacrosse game, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man. But, and all of his friends were texting him the whole time how much fun they were having. So it was pretty amazing. He will be attending the dance this week, I guess, so I'm pretty excited for him on that. To just see the growth at the junior high as far as the, 2 out of 5 grew in the math grade level. We're seeing like rock hard statistics showing that everything that you've done and everything that your team has done is making a difference here in the school district. And that is what it's all about, is making a better education for these kids, giving them more opportunities. I mean, some of these kids are now going into high school with credits from 8th grade, that a high school credit. A lot of these kids have the opportunity now coming out of high school to, I think, one of the board meetings in the last month or so, or 2 months ago, they could almost have an entire year worth of credits, college credits, coming out of high school now here. That's pretty amazing. I mean, that's pretty awesome what we're giving these children. We're giving these students to come out with. So, once again, thank you for your time, Kirk. I really do appreciate it. I think you've done a great job, and Kingston will be very, very happy to have you. Thank you.
First off, just to mention, BOCES meeting is tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll have a notice of a superintendent announcement after that meeting tomorrow. That is tomorrow. Can't talk about it yet. So, wanted to thank Katie for presenting today and coming in, and especially for bringing back the top 3. The top 3 things that we as a district, as a board, came together, and that whole process, just reminding us of that process we were all so committed to, and that the beginning being, what is it that we wanted from a new superintendent? What did we want for the district? And always making that a board priority to just, at every opportunity that we have, to stop and say, what do we want? What are we looking for as a board? What is the direction we're trying to take this district? Because we are looking at another, hopefully 4, 5, hopefully more years out of somebody, and making sure that we're doing that with a united front, as we did 4 years ago, which I feel really thrilled that report card and the result from our goal set back then has been met so tremendously, and we're watching it. I don't know what student made our pictures, but I just want to say these are amazing. I got to see the student reps. She was amazing. It was really cute. I just want to say thank you. This is going to be a treasure. We have the honor and the privilege of being here and meeting students and teachers every time, and to see what their work is. And in all my years of serving, this is the one thing that I'm, like, we've gotten candy and we've gotten, like, this is great, I love this, thank you. We had the opportunity to meet the students today, and Mrs. Vale, I have heard your presentations, I can't tell you how many times, and they're always so amazing, but I just felt like today's presentation, you blew it out of the water. Like, the knowledge that I gained from the students was not just about, this is my curriculum, and this is what I'm taught, and this is what I do. It was, this is the development, and this is what we learn. I was able to go to the art table, and my family are not artists. My children did not travel in that path, but they traveled in the music path. So I said to the students, I said, I've seen growth in music. I understand growth in band, and I understand watching growth, and thrilled when I get to watch and see the growth in choir, in plays, and all of that. I don't know growth in art. I don't know what I'm seeing. So to have students turn to me and say, well, let me show you. This is a first level. This is how you go to the next level. This is what you should be seeing at the next level. So they know what education is, and they know what they're supposed to be expecting. And to see that out of sometimes, I think I was talking to 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. So to see that level of ability to explain their education is just, it blows my mind. To have the presentation of our student government representative today, he has the eloquence of, this is who my school is, and it really showed what the building is offering and what the students are getting. And I'm the first one to say, it's what we offer, it's whether the students want to partake, and we will just keep trying to offer, and we will just keep trying to help them take those paths and take those opportunities. And when I meet kids who have come to me with something that it's just, you're not looking up the opportunities. Let's help you find the opportunities, because they're all right here, and it's amazing. And thank you all so much.
Just like to say, repeat a couple of things tonight. When I sit here and watch the enthusiasm from Ms. Vale, from the children getting ready to speak, and then to hear how one of them is, going to further their dreams through, scholarships, through opportunities that have been presented. I mean, it's really wonderful, to have a graduation rate increase. Mr. Reinhardt helped lead a team, bring us to numbers that we hadn't seen previously. I mean, to talk about ugly data, I mean, we can't fix it until we name it. So I think to have that ability in the district where people are comfortable, people that have been brought into the district, people that have been here for decades, to have that opportunity to feel comfortable to identify our problems and move forward. It's really been a great experience, and on that note, I hate to see Mr. Reinhardt go, but I completely understand, and like to thank him for the time and service that he's given to our community.
Ms. Paul? Thanks, Mr. Tillman. So a lot of thanks to pass around for sure, and I would like to start with Ms. Vale and the students as well that I met, upon first arriving. It's not too challenging to win me over when the first thing you offer me is a chocolate chip cookie. So happily and thankfully, that was the first table that I was able to visit. But there's a lot that you see when you see students participating in this kind of an event. And I'm very pleased to not only see, the students demonstrating their experiential activities, right? They're learning by doing. And Ms. Vale's presentation also included that reference to enhancing, career tech ed opportunities, career tech, the opportunities for credit for career technology, but also see the pro-social skills and the presentation skills that you can almost see as the students are working through what they're telling you. You can see them refining it and reflecting on what it is that they want to share. So thank you very much for that. It was great. Congratulations to all of the students that participated. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Zimbrella as well. I don't choose to go down memory lane every time we're at a board meeting necessarily, but I can't help but recall that Mr. Zimbrella became the head custodian at Mount Marion Elementary School circa sometime around 1976 when I was there. So I remember him as one of the adults in the building that was, for lack of a better, one of those people that you could go to, that your teachers would tell you, go see Gene if they needed something or there was some assistance or something like that. But also just seeing a friendly face in the hallway, someone who has, been around thousands and thousands and thousands of students. It's incredibly impressive, and I thank you for that service, and I thank you for having, myself been able to be a part of that experience. And all the best to you, Gene. Congratulations to the students in the senior play and the Science Olympiad as well. As Mr. Reinhardt pointed out, we're Saugerties. We're a small upstate school district, relatively speaking, and some of the schools that you go up against are significant. So that is incredible. And once again, thank you. And I'd like to thank Mr. Reinhardt as well, myself. Unlike many of the board members here, I have not had the opportunity to work with him extensively, and that is something that I'm going to regret, that I haven't had that opportunity. To the administrative team over here, you know, not lost, but in the midst of this transition, all of you are staying the course, and you're fulfilling all of your obligations. Not that that wouldn't be expected, but it's noticed. Your work is valued, and you are valued. And I'd like to thank you all for that. A transition such as this is not necessarily easy, probably even filled with some angst. But I want to make sure that you hear that and extend that thank you to all of you as well. A couple people have alluded to the superintendent search process that is coming up, and a little bit later on today we're going to vote on a board action item which simply announces the school budget vote and the Board of Education elections. Because this is obviously, you know, a public forum, I want to just make sure that everybody is aware of these announcements and aware of these upcoming processes, and we're here as representatives of your community in this school setting to listen to whatever input and feedback you want to provide. So Dr. Emerson Haas's feedback, for instance, incredibly, I'm appreciative, and I think the board is appreciative, and I think the public would be appreciative as well to hear that kind of advice and guidance. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Scott?
Okay, I crossed off some of my repeats here, but I want to thank Mrs. Vail and the students for the presentation tonight. Mr. Reinhardt, thank you very much for your time. The change you brought to this district is what inspired me to run for a board seat. I'm happy to be here, so thank you for that. And then I want to thank Mr. Joe Tiano for doing the ski and snowboard trip this year. It wrapped up at the end of February. He did all the plans. It was 6 different trips, 3 different buses to Hunter Mountain. I want to thank all the chaperones. It was a lot of parents dedicated their time, and some of us in here that helped make that happen. So thanks to us. And that's it.
Sure.
I did have it in my notes. I would like to congratulate one of our audience members, Ms. Jessica Riazzi, on being a friend of education, nominated and part of the Ulster County School Boards Association a dinner, recognition dinner. Congratulations to you and all of the work that you do in our district. Jessica.
Am I on? There we go. All right. Ms. Riazzi, I saw you got my letter. Congratulations. Please bring your +1, and we hope you have an enjoyable evening. And to echo Mr. Wall, absolutely hands down, thank you for everything that you've done for the district. It was an easy choice. Thank you. Ms. Vail. Always a pleasure. As you know, I like to watch people and what they do. And when Colin was up here, the young man that was up here speaking, I could tell he was nervous. I kind of saw myself in him, but I saw he was a happy kid, and or was enthusiastic about being up here. But I think he was so excited to let us know. I think he used the word fun at least 4 or 5 times. So when we go back and watch it, the loop, I'm guaranteeing at least 4 times. But I think that's awesome. Seeing kids come and wanting to talk, even though they're nervous about it. So, I think that's great. I applaud you. I applaud every staff member, because I think that's what kind of makes the district is, it's definitely the brick and mortar, and the staff, but I think allowing kids to find their voice is really, really important, so thank you. Mrs. McDougal, in the beginning with the Star Spangled Banner. Always a great show. Speaking of shows, the play, I heard nothing but positive comments in the community, and people had a really good time. Mrs. DeFino with the Science Olympiad, just continually impressed. She's a rock star, she really is, and so are the students that clamor to her. Mr. Reinhardt, he was my boss. And then I was his boss. And now he's going to be my boss's boss. So I appreciated the comments on the, the report card stuff. But hopefully patient and forgiving is also one of those attributes. Just kidding. I'll be very honest with you. I don't know. I'm very confident in the team that you've assembled. I think people came here because they wanted to work for you and with you. But one of the things that I've noticed in my tenure in Kingston was he always kind of came in and it didn't matter who you were. He spoke to you the same regardless. And I think that's what makes him who he is. Nobody really picked up the Captain Kirk thing. I really wish they did. But, sorry, it's a little inside joke. But I do, it's bittersweet for me. I'm glad he's coming back, and I'm sorry he's leaving. But I do understand your reasoning, and I wish you success. And I know that Saugerties is better off for your time here. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I don't know there's much more to say. I think everyone's kind of covered everything with all the appreciation for all the presentations tonight. I know especially having only elementary kids at this point, haven't experienced anything at the junior high school level and beyond. So just kind of seeing the different things that are offered there, and the engagement that the kids had in their presentations and what they're learning, I thought was helpful for me as a parent and Board of Education member. I just wanted to echo all the sentiments of Ms. Riazzi. It was glad you got that award. It's well deserved. Thank you, Kirk, for your service the past 4 years, and we look forward as a board to move forward. But thank you, and good luck in your next position.
No, I don't think I've been to a board meeting with as many positive comments. It really feels good. Out of all the board members here, I think I've been on the board the longest, and I'm probably the oldest person in this room, which means I probably need mental health help. But aside from that, I think one of the things about Kirk is that he can add to his resume that he changed the culture of the Saugerties School District, and that's not an easy thing to do. That's really a miracle. As I looked at my fellow board members, Dr. Haas, Krista, Mr. Ferrara is not here, Mike, Jim, we all came on the board because we didn't like the way things were going in Saugerties. We didn't like the graduation rates. We didn't like the lack of opportunities for students. When Mr. Wickham spoke today, it reminded me that when I first came onto the board meetings were videotaped by the son of a board member who was not a student, who was being paid out of the administrative budget to tape board meetings while we had a computer video production studio next door to this library. And that wasn't right. When I come into a board meeting now, instead of being nervous and fraught with anxiety, the first thing I see are those computer video production students. I see Mr. Wickham and Mrs. Hayes, and I'm greeted with a smile and a pleasantry that didn't exist before, and that's a big cultural shift. The fact that Ms. Vail presented tonight and Colin presented tonight, and we had those student stations, that's a big cultural shift that we never saw before. When I was first on the board, there was a section for educational reporting, and that was often left blank because thought there was nothing to report. So, Mr. Reinhardt, you've made a tremendous impact. It's impossible to calculate how many staff lives you've touched. Hearing from Mr. Wickham, you've obviously touched the staff lives. So I don't think our work is through. Polish up that resume, but I believe in collaboration. It's not by accident that you're going to be in the neighboring district. So I hope there are some ventures that we can cooperate on together. That whatever that is, whether it be a grant proposal, student activities, opportunities for students to succeed, or to hear our voices jointly heard in Albany to make things better for students, I think that's going to happen. I've gone through probably talking to Mr. Reinhardt almost every day for the last 4 years, and I can't put into words what a great relationship that is to have, to see his dedication, to see his work. I get tired when I just look at his schedule. From the time he gets up, getting a text at 5 in the morning, to sometimes getting a text at 1 o'clock at night. It's a lot, but I wish you well, and stay in touch with us. I'd like to see you at graduation this year for us. And with that being said, we'll take a short break. Order. I'll entertain a motion to approve item J1. Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second? Second. Second by Ms. McClary. Any discussion?
Is this where I would ask for item C to be,
Sure.
to discussion on
So
executive
make a
session?
motion that they take that item out of the motion that we're voting on and move to executive session.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move item C out of this section to be tabled until after executive session.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on that amendment? None being heard, I'll call for a vote on Ms. Bellarosa's motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to vote on item J1 with the exception of item C. Any further discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion for item J2, leave of absence.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Paulson, is there a second? Second by Ms. Bellarosa. Discussion. None being heard, I will call for a roll call vote on this item.
Albert Tillman,
Yes.
James Mooney,
Abstain.
William Ball,
Yes.
Krista Barringer,
Yes.
Christine Bellarosa,
Yes.
Raymond McClary,
Yes.
Scott Polston,
Yes.
Timothy Wells.
Yes.
Motion carried, 7 yes, 1 abstain.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for item J3, appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney, is there a second? Second by Ms. Bellarosa. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion for item K, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Up and 10.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ball. Discussion?
I just have a question.
Sure.
On item 10, is that just accepting the proposal? Are there other RFPs that we're expecting, or is this we're not accepting? Is this
There
the
were 2
contract?
proposals, but this is the contract that was the winner.
Okay, so we're actually
For
voting
student,
on.
But there's actually, well, I should say, there's 3 contracts within that proposal. I know it's like 153 pages and stuff, but in there's a home to school contract, a summer transportation contract, and a field trip and athletic contract. And they're all, first student came in with the highest number of points in our evaluation matrix. And you'll find the proposal is at the beginning, and then the last, I don't know, 18 pages or so is each of the evaluations of each of the contracts.
Okay, so was there anything attached? Or is okay, I missed that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Board action discussions on items. I will entertain a motion for item L1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney, second. Mr. Ball. Discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item M, board discussion items, fireman's tax exemption. I guess it's my understanding that we don't have enough data right now to know how that would affect the district budget-wise, including like the number of volunteer firemen. Do you have anything different than that?
So I was actually told that someone was going to be here to talk about this point, but I can just say that I worked with the town assessor on putting together some numbers using certain assumptions. like in the example that we did, it was, I think 150 volunteers that would get the exemption, and if everyone had a property valued at $240,000, what would that look like? And it really came out to a difference in the tax rate shifting to the remaining taxpayers of 2 cents per thousand. That was, in that example, using assumptions.
How many total taxpayers are there?
I'm not sure.
11, 12,000?
So everybody else's taxes go up to offset the discount for volunteer fire.
Right. 2 cents per every $1,000 of assessed value.
Can I ask if we can get a more formal proposal from those who are proposing it? Something more in writing that we can actually look at? And in particular, I guess what I'm looking for is who would qualify? And I would ask, I'm asking them to be a bit more stringent on who can qualify, not just being an active firefighter, meaning that they attend certain events a certain number of times, but that the amount of service is recognized on an annual basis in order to qualify for such tax exemption, that it would have to be until a lifetime qualification is granted. But if they could give us a proposal that offers a bit more specificity of who would qualify, because if not, hey, I want to be a volunteer firefighter.
I agree. We do need those numbers and the offset and everything else.
So Jane, if we did something like this, it wouldn't affect staffing or anything like that. It would be borne on the backs of the taxpayers.
Correct, because we would levy the tax levy that we need to support our budget. It would just be a matter of who's paying that tax levy. So the firefighters and the ambulance workers, I think, they would pay less, and then the rest of the taxpayers would pay a bit more.
And we don't have to, we're not under the gun to make a decision right now, correct?
Correct, we have until next February.
I spoke to Jane briefly. I don't know if, and I understood that the additional taxpayers pay the burden, but being there's multiple fire districts in Saugerties, could they increase the levy on the districts to offset the cost? Kind of make it a town-wide thing, not just, I mean, the school's a different source for the tax, but I'm just saying, have the town identify who's eligible, as opposed to putting the burden on the school and the town, like have them identify who might be eligible.
Since the exemptions go through the town assessor's office, it would be the town assessor's responsibility to get that information on whatever parameters we set. So I believe Wallkill School, they did something with theirs where each year the firefighters had to certify or something to say that they're still active or whatever the requirements are. I mean, I read over the information once and it was about I can't remember right off the top of my head. But we could definitely get more information, and if you would like, we could reach out to the fire departments for the information on their volunteers to get, I guess, better information as to how much of an effect that this would have. I know the example I worked on with the town assessor was just using those assumptions that I talked about. But since we have months, we could definitely look into it a little bit more.
And since we have months, maybe this is something we should also put forward as a public hearing to see how our community feels about the possibility of this tax exemption coming from the school?
Well, it's a clever trick of the governor. She announced that towns and school districts could eat the tax burden. She didn't announce a 10% reduction for firemen on the state income tax, which would make it fair across the state. I love the firefighters. They do a great job, but it's kind of an additional burden to create extra work for Jane. It's creating extra work for the town. And it's not something, that came from the district or the town. So, we also have some time to lobby Parliament.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion on this item?
I would just echo, a lot of the sentiments about obviously having some real information. The heart is willing, but the flesh is weak kind of a scenario, right? I mean, the spirit and intent of giving an exemption to these folks is a good one. I know that all of the fire companies have typically struggled to maintain membership. And I don't foresee at any point in time any kind of a municipal fire force being developed, you know, in the town of Saugerties, despite the size, despite the distances. So it's very likely that the model that we have is going to stay the same, and I think we all would agree that we probably wouldn't bat an eye if it was a municipal force that was part of our everyday life and budget as part of our town, because we all know the value of having paid, trained individuals, you know. So again, I think sentiment, absolutely, you know, it's there, and understanding and appreciating what it is that they're trying to do. On the same token, and I've shared this before, and I'll just share this again for the purposes of our meeting. You know, there are a lot of other, you know, groups in our town for whom the school tax is a significant burden, and I'm talking about some of our elderly people that are cash property rich, cash poor kind of individuals, and I do know there are opportunities for them through STAR, et cetera. But I think, you know, there's a pretty big and broad conversation that we should have, and so I like Krista's idea about you know, bringing the group together, asking them to develop a little different presentation, maybe some more detailed, and just furthering the discussions along the year.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to committee reports. Audit committee?
Oh, and we met. Wait a minute. So we met recently, and we had...
And you were there.
I was. I keep running in a little late. There was no students. So we met with our internal auditor, and we reviewed our risk assessment report, and it was a wonderful dialogue. We really talked about what are some of the concerns of a district, any district, and how well our district is doing at managing the risks as we see them. I believe the board received a copy of the report. Yeah. Yep. And that was it. That was the rest of it.
We did talk about the single audit, which is the federal expenditures, which is also on the board.
What? We did the
single audit,
which is about
the federal expenditures, so it's the federal grant money.
Our federal grant money, yep. And that's going to be our next single audit. So that's our current single audit.
Nope, that happens every year. It's a little bit different. I think you're talking about the specific area of review for the internal auditor. We talked about payroll being the next topic.
Correct.
Because we haven't done that one in a while.
So just to backtrack a little bit for those, we had the single audit for the federal expenditures. It was just a required document. It was sort of a nothing document. Yeah, they did it, they filed it, like it's great. So then the other document, the independent auditor on an annual basis picks a focus area. Well, we pick the focus area and say, hey, go look at this one. So the focus area that they are just working on now.
Finishing up transportation. And
Finishing up, because I got the sense at the meeting he hadn't really started yet.
Yeah, he has.
Oh, good.
He just hasn't written it.
Oh, okay.
He did the field work.
Oh, he did feel. Yeah, so we're waiting on a report on the transportation focus, and our next focus area will be on payroll, which we're really excited because in my tenure, we've never really looked at that as a focus area, so it should be a good new area to look at.
And the auditor was generally positive in the report of this, correct?
Yes, on every report, yeah. We're looking good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Facilities, Mr. Mooney?
We're looking good. The bids came back in a good spot. The capital outlay project was agreed upon to be the flooring at Cardi, and our next meeting is April 12th. So it won't be the first Wednesday because we're out that week, but it'll be on the 12th, and and it will be at 5:30.
Policy, another you want to, Mike?
No, but I have a question. The date is, should we move it back to the week before? Or
So
next month?
So the next board meeting is the 18th, so we have it scheduled for the 11th.
Oh, that's right,
right
so
now.
we're the week ahead. Okay.
We just do that.
So we're good for the 11th.
And then Mr. Ursig, he was fantastic.
Dr. Ursig is getting great reviews.
Public recognition. If any member of the public wishing to address the board, please approach the podium. If there's any member of the public left. None being heard, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So,
Second. Jim and Bill. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, I can take the vote on that next month.
You don't mind?
No, not at all.
Thank you.
So we'll take the vote. I'd like to welcome our custodial staff to this board meeting.
Any remarks, gentlemen?
Mike Mays is awesome.
I will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ball. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will entertain a motion to untable item J1C.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second, Mr. Wells? Any discussion? None being heard on untabling the motion. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion to approve item J1C.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mooney. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. LaRosa. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paulson. Any discussion? None being heard. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys, for making it happen.
Scott, Jackie.
Thank you.